For 8 years now, Radio 4 have been sending me to random postcodes around the country for a little series called The Patch. It's a good one to explain to strangers. What's my job? I go to random postcodes to find stories. People always ask me if it's really random, if I've ever been tempted to cheat, even just a tiny bit. And I always say, why would I? Every street in Britain is full of stories you couldn't have written. So, no. Until now. I was on my way to a postcode in North Oxford. North Oxford, where the streets are lined with Oxford dons and the houses are worth millions. But on the Banbury Road out of Oxford, just past the Farrow and Ball and the Gales Bakery, are two roads off to the right. Unremarkable, leafy suburban streets. 1930s semis with driveways and lovely foliage, where the numbers of the houses go 135 on the left and 2468 on the right, until you get to number 28. And something bizarre happens. Number 28's neighbour is number 87. One of the things that I found most puzzling was the numbers.
Yes, I'm still puzzled by it. 87 next to 28 and people get confused.
On my first stroll along this road, I bumped into Maya on her way back from walking her poodle. How often does that happen?
All the time. They just don't know where they're going.
If you're a delivery driver, you might scratch your head and wonder whether you've been working too hard and your mind is playing tricks.
No, most of them just put it somewhere and then we organise amongst ourselves.
And then you might see the blue plaque. And what does the blue plaque say?
It just says the wall was here and it was taken down in 1959. And just the site of the Cutteslowe Walls, as they say.
Here stood one of the two Cutteslowe Walls, erected in 1934 and finally demolished on the 9th of March, 1959.
So the wall was dividing two areas. One was a council estate and the other one was 1930s middle-class houses, little semis. And the wall was there to stop the people from the working class area walking through the middle-class area, just in case they made those people feel a little bit uncomfortable.
Wow.
It's funny, isn't it?
Because when the white rendered suburban semis were built for private tenants in 1934, the private property developer was concerned that the neighbouring council estate would put prospective tenants off. So you know what he did? He built walls.
A red brick wall, which was, I reckon, between 8 to 9 feet probably.
Walls across the two access roads to the council estate to keep everyone on the council estate out.
With these spikes that revolved all the way around. From one end of the spike to the other end of the spike must have been at least 2 foot. And there were 4 on each collar, so they were revolving round.
And it took 25 years of campaigning to get them removed.
We weren't there all that much, what with work and one thing and another, and we played tennis.
So the walls were seen as an advantage then, by people on your side?
Yes, I suppose so.
If someone had written this as a novel, it's not hard to picture the reviews. Imaginative plot. But as a metaphor for class division in Britain, it's a little heavy-handed. And yet, this happened.
If this kind of thing is going to happen, the last place you'd expect it to happen would be in North Oxford, with all these decent, fine, good people knocking about, all of which look the other way.
And then there's the matter of its legacy. What happened after the walls came down? Well, that depends on who you ask. And technically, what side of the wall are you on?
Oh, on the posh side, technically on the posh side.
Would you say that the division still exists from each side?
Not really. I mean, I saw a Maserati parked over there the other day, so we don't have a Maserati. I think it's safe to say it's kind of evened out.
But something happened not that long ago, which might suggest a few scars remain.
But you can see the line where the tarmac.
Oh gosh, you can?
Yeah.
Back in 2018, the council, as councils sometimes do, re-tarmacked the road.
The council were resurfacing the roads, and they resurfaced our road, and then they stopped where Wentworth Road stops.
exactly where the wall once sat. Technically, Maya's next-door neighbour still lives on a different road to her.
And one day I was trying to get my children to go to school early in the morning, and I come out here in front of my house, and there was a journalist stuck a microphone in my face and asked me to comment what did I think about the decision by the council to resurface this. Somebody decided to do a big graffiti on the pavement, and they wrote "Class Wars."
History has been revived with graffiti daubed on North Oxford Road. The slogan "Class War" was painted across the street where the so-called Cutteslowe Wall was built in 1934 to separate the housing estate from a private development.
And the lady across the street, she had a car parked outside, and that all paint got on a car, and she was really livid about it. She came out and told him to, go somewhere. She wasn't too happy.
The graffiti was prompted by the resurfacing of Wentworth Road and not the adjoining Aldrich Road.
So that was in the morning. By the afternoon, there was a whole crowd of people here, and then there were people who looked like you with microphones and headphones. It was like they were trying to start a riot, really, and a protest against the council for resurfacing just this road.
Well, Oxford City Council says Wentworth Road was resurfaced because the structural condition was worse than Aldridge Road.
This is the shadow of the Cutteslowe Walls.
Okay, so this is for the English speakers. This is for next Wednesday, okay? Different schedule.
On the old council estate side of the wall, a queue of people had gathered outside the community centre for the weekly community larder. Not a food bank, everyone pays a small fee if they can, so there is no stigma to using it.
Okay, you'll do the Ukrainian?
Yes.
Polina had been enlisted to help translate for all the Ukrainian refugees in the line.
Very good.
People arrive 2 hours before the larder opens and get a hot meal while they wait.
And I know Tatiana.
Rory was calling out people's names in order as he distributed spaghetti bolognese.
Ira is Ira.
A woman rushed past me looking for the tea urn. "I've lost everything except my virginity today," she told me.
It's basically whatever there is. So there is each week.
What is this?
This is whole palm hearts in brine, which I googled and is asparagus or artichoke.
There's 298 houses on the old council estate side of the walls, 222 on the old private side. And here's the thing which caught my attention. No one I met here at the community centre was here when the walls stood.
That was the Oxford that was.
But everyone seemed to know the story.
Do you know they say this is the poor state? Other side is the rich side.
And some people I met said they could still see the shadow of it today.
I think if you live here, you notice the difference. If you were just passing through, you wouldn't necessarily realise. But yeah, there is definitely the council end and the posh end.
Amazing. Thank you so much, my darling.
Steph manages the community centre here.
We're a very small pocket of deprivation surrounded by immense wealth. If you look at census data of the area, unless you're zoomed in quite close to Cutteslowe, you don't see that there are any problems. We're all shown up in a lovely blue colour of wealth and prosperity, but when you zoom in a bit closer, we are a very small pocket of deprivation. With the third most expensive place to buy a house in the city, but over 20% of our children are growing up in poverty. I feel like there is a lot less division than there has been previously. Inequality is still right up there.
On my way here, I passed St George's flags on the Cutteslowe roundabout. Videos circulated on social media of them going up.
Cutteslowe roundabout now done.
And the flags on the roundabout, when did those go up?
They went up within about an hour on a Saturday morning about 6 weeks ago. And they were thorough. Not flagpole, lamppost. But yeah, they came and they're here. And they're not all that easy to take down.
At a time when people often talk about how divided Britain is today, I wondered what happened here after the walls came down.
And I put a post up on Facebook saying, Polly's really interested in hearing from you if you lived on the specific roads where the Cutteslowe Walls stood. And we got lots of amazing stories and people coming forward. Here we are. And I think Steve's really stuck out to me because it was such a personal memory. And he emailed to say, yeah, I remember the walls coming down because I was at school that day and it was my birthday. And his story was absolutely gorgeous.
I'm Steve Griffiths. I was born and raised on Cutteslowe Estate, and the walls were knocked down on my birthday in 1959.
How did you first hear about what I was up to?
Well, that was very strange in itself because you get these feeds on Facebook, but this one came up on Cutteslowe Community Association announcing the possibility of a programme about the walls.
He didn't follow Cutteslowe Community Centre, so he had no idea how it came to be on his feed. But on that day, Mark Zuckerberg's algorithm dealt us all a little bit of luck.
Sheer serendipity. It dropped into my telephone. The rest has followed on from that.
And why was that of interest to you?
I think people should know that this did happen, because when I've described it to people, sometimes they don't believe that the wall didn't just sort of divide an estate. It actually went across the pavements and through the gardens and across the road. And they don't know about it, or they didn't know about it until you show them the picture and remind them that, you know, these things were not that long ago when people were discriminated in this way, and that people don't choose to live in a council house. You know, you just end up in those circumstances, and you're no different from the people on the other side of the wall. Your houses, I know, because I went in both lots, weren't really any different. We're all the same people. We just have different financial circumstances.
In the next episode, Steve's story of the wall.
My childhood memories of home are split across 3 or 4 houses.
It's about the sanctuary this council estate gave him and all the houses he called home during the events of his childhood. You don't know anything about who lives in those houses now?
I don't.
Would you like to?
I would.
What happened to each of Steve's homes after the walls came down, and who lives there today? What would your hopes be for those houses today?
Normality. Simple as that. You know, let's have a world now where we don't look down on people because they're in this social group or that social group. We got rid of that. The walls came down, you know, keep them down. That's the message.